Went up there. I didn't know what was going on. I was just, going on with David, and that's when the discussion took place about creating a new club. So
Wow. So you were at the birth of the garage.
yeah, at the very first party when they had sawdust soaking up the oil. I was bouncing all over the place with my Converse sneakers, having a great time.
Today is October 11th, 2022. Who are we speaking with?
Ricky Richardson.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was actually born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I grew up in Brooklyn. My parents came to New York when I was 1 year old.
Okay.
So, and I went to school in Brooklyn. And when I reached 18, then I moved to the Bronx. And since then, I've lived in every borough. Presently, I'm in Staten Island now.
What kind of music did you hear around the house growing up?
That's an interesting question. A lot of Motown.
Okay.
A lot of Motown. I mean,
was that your mom or your dad?
My mother, actually.
Okay.
A lot of Motown. We listened to a lot of Motown. Supremes, the Four Tops, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson.
Did you like it at the time, or were you indifferent to it?
Did I like it at the time? No, I really liked the music.
Okay.
That Motown produced, but I was also open to other types of music too, like the Doors and Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones and what's that this famous group? Oh man, I can't think of their name, but I loved them. They really made some great music. That back then was a whole different era, and the music reflected the time at in the 70s and in the 60s. It was really an exciting time. A lot of things were going on.
And then, do you remember your first clubbing experience?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Yes, I do. I was about 15 years old. And the very first club that I went to was actually in Brooklyn. It was called King of Clubs. And it was located on West 8th Street and Kings Highway. And there it was a guy named Kenny Miles, George Burke, Jose, I forget his name. They brought me there to that club. Yeah, for the first time. And it was interesting. There was some street dances out during that time, like called the Bus Stop and the Penguin. And yeah, that was my first experience with going to a club.
Do you remember the kind of music they played?
Yes, I do. It was like South Soul Orchestra. What else? James Brown. It was that type of music. R&B, but soulful R&B.
And then talk about the crowd. Was it a mixed crowd, a minority crowd, a white crowd?
Well, when the first club that I went to was mostly white, actually. Yeah. I didn't experience like an integrated scene until we went to the city. And as a matter of fact, George and Jose, they introduced me to a club called the Galaxy 21. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a mixed crowd.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a crowd. At the time, you paid $10 to get in, and you could drink all night.
Wow. Wow. Imagine doing that today.
No,
be
it'd probably be $100 and come in
exactly.
and drink all night.
Wow.
But
Wow.
those were like some really interesting times. And as a matter of fact, George Burke is responsible for me eventually experiencing the loft.
That's the perfect segue. What is the loft?
Well, the loft was not a club. Let's clarify that. It was not a club. Okay. It was a party in every sense of the word, a party. It was not a club, and it was actually David's house. He lived there, so.
Tell people who David is.
Huh?
Tell people who David is.
What do you mean? David Mancuso is the host of the loft, and I'm going to clarify the host, And when he sent out an invitation, it was actually to come to his home. So you never got the impression that you were in a club, because you weren't. you were in his home. So being invited to someone's home, you would expect that there would be certain types of conduct that you certainly wouldn't conduct yourself in a way that would be disrespectful to the man's home. So a lot of people came there under invitation. So you weren't just going to come there and just expect to get in. It wasn't like that.
Tell us about the first time you went to the loft. Describe that.
Oh boy, I got to go back to the memory banks. The first time that I went, we actually piled into Jose's station wagon. It was like a bunch of us. We, used to go over to George's house, and we drink and just have a good time in his home. And I don't remember exactly who made the suggestion, but George said, "You really want to go to a good party? Come on, let's go." So we all jumped in the station wagon, and we went to the club, and well, not the club, but to David's house. And when I first walked in there, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you.
How old were you at the time?
18.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 18.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went in, the first thing that I noticed was the incense. The smell in the hallway was you definitely would recognize it, because he had incense everywhere. And when you walked in, to the left was Mickey Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Then as you walked in a little bit further, there was Donald Duck, and it was perfectly painted on his wall. And a lot of people don't know who the artist was who did that, and his name was Clyde, and he was a great artist. Because when you walked in and you saw, the cartoon characters, as soon as you got in after you were you paid your dues because it was a contribution of, I think at that time it was $6.99. And after you paid your contribution, you walked in, and what you would see toys on the floor. Uh, like dancing on the floor, so to speak. And a lot of people didn't know that that particular location, when David rented it, it used to be a toy factory. So a lot of the toys were still left behind when he rented it. So he just put them out and displayed them on the dance floor. It was interesting.
Now, tell everybody, there were multiple Loft locations. Tell everybody which location this was.
99 Prince Street.
Perfect.
Yeah. 99 Prince Street. But at the time, the entrance wasn't on 99 Prince Street. It was 147 Mercer. That was the entrance.
Oh, okay. All right, so you walk in, Mickey Mouse,
Donald Duck.
Walk down the hallway, you see the toys, and then what else did you see? What were people wearing? We saw the insides. Do you remember the first songs you heard?
The first thing that you would notice is the colorful, beautiful balloons were everywhere. It was everywhere. And then to the left, you would see like a counter. There would be cookies, there'd be candy, there'd be drinks. And the one who was responsible for that was Sheila. She was actually the host when it came to the beverages and things of that sort. And I still remember another worker at that time. His name was Jackie. I believe his last name was Madonia. I don't remember, but he was a very kind person. He was always, asking if everything was okay. How are you doing? He was really friendly and talking to people. He's very good at that. So, yeah.
Tell people about the music. Do you remember what you heard when you went there that night?
Oh man, stubborn kind of fella. Kiss Me Again. Oh boy. Come On Down, Boogie People. I remember those records the first time I went.
And describe the fashion.
The Loft wasn't about fashion. It was about comfortability. At least from a dancer's point of view. It was, people came in there dressed however they were. It wasn't like going to like a formal setting where you would be with a tie and a shirt and stuff like that. Although people came in there like that occasionally, but it was about comfortability, at that time. It wasn't about fashion or who's wearing the best outfit, or it wasn't about that. It was about comfortability, enjoying yourself, and the focus wasn't on what people were wearing. The focus was on the music, because the music was so intense that who was thinking about fashion?
And what was your reaction to the Loft when you went there for the first time? Did you get it? Did you feel at home? Did you need time to process? Like, what were you feeling?
What do you mean? It was an environment that really it inspired you. To the point where you knew you wanted to come back.
Okay.
You really wanted to experience it again, because you got to take in consideration the things that were going on at the time. Unemployment was extremely high at that time. You had a madman running around killing people, the Son of Sam. You had, the authorities at that particular time trying to get government help because the unemployment was so high, people were on welfare. It was really a tough time, you know. So when you went to the loft, it was like you left your baggage outside, and it was like you felt energized, you felt relief, and a lot of people that came there, you know, they were able to visualize themselves in a better situation because the music was so inspirational. I can't remember Dave ever playing a song that was negative.
Mm, mm, mm.
That's why you still hear the same type of music today, because the lyrics was inspirational. And more importantly, from a dancer's point of view, the music was inspired you to create.
So let's clarify some things about the loft. Were there guest DJs?
No. Period. No. Rarely did you ever see anybody playing on David's system. David was the host of his home, but he was also the musical host. And you can't say that David was a DJ because he wasn't. When he played a record, he played it from start to finish. And then he will put on the next one.
That was
and
my
that's why.
That was my next question. He didn't mix.
No, not at all. But after he played a record from beginning to end, it exploded with applause. Each record. That's what was so interesting about going there. That you know, people really expressed their appreciation for him playing the music all the way through. You can't find that. It's very difficult to find that today. I mean, it's still, there's some people I would imagine that still, you know, play like David once did.
Let's clarify something else. Upstairs versus downstairs.
I don't know. You know, that's a very interesting question because I never even thought about that in that particular fashion, like upstairs versus downstairs. Downstairs was basically, it was just an atmosphere of dancers just expressing themselves, really enjoying themselves. And upstairs was more like how would I describe upstairs? Upstairs was like people just wanted to just be into each other, you know, like dancing together, you know. Downstairs was like, it was like showtime. You know, it's like going downstairs was like watching a really good dance show. And people were just expressing themselves, and the level of creativity was just amazing. You know, there's so many great dances came out of the loft, man. It was just, I don't say that one was better than the other. I would say that each one was best at what they did. Because we never competed to each other. Not like today. I look around and I see, you know, they create this circle and they start dancing and battling each other. That didn't exist back in the loft. People were just enjoying themselves, you know, and just creating themselves. And be honest with you, that's the way it should be. You know? I would say, you know, that from my point of view, I always resisted the urge to compare myself to anyone. I just never did that. And there were times where guys would jump in front of me, and try to like say, yeah, I'm a good dancer too, that type of mentality. And I wouldn't get in, I'd say, let him do his thing, But if he disrespected me, that took it to a whole different level. Now I'm going to burn you, and I would embarrass them. But that's how I used to think. Of course, I'm not like that today, but
I love that. I love that. That's great. Great.
So yeah, because my thing was that I wanted everyone to have a good time. I would take a roll of balloons and start swinging them around, man, and just yelling at the top of my lungs, because I wanted everyone to really enjoy themselves, And
Let's talk about the sound at the Loft. Richard Long and Sweeters. Break it down for us.
Well, a lot of people don't notice, but there are some who really understood what David was doing. David was really, really smart, man. He understood the relationship between sound and body temperature. That's how he was into it scientifically. He was into it. So he arranged speakers to accommodate body heat once they entered the room. So if you turned on his system before anyone got there, it would sound totally different. But when people entered that room, it was amazing. Now, at that time, I think he had like maybe 20 to 27 different amplifiers that were directly connected to different speakers individually. But he was able to break down the wattage from like, maybe he had 1,000 watts per channel or maybe 500, I'm not sure. But he was able to take that wattage and break it down to 25 watts per channel, but still have the sound of 1,000 or 500 watts per channel. If that makes any sense. Now, everything that he had was at one time was custom made. He had cartridges, the needles were actually made in Japan from a master who made that. And the turntables were actually put together by the best companies who produce the best arms, the best turntable, and he had it customly built. So when you think about that type of sound system, you're talking about clarity. You're talking about pure sound. So you can just imagine what that might sound like. It's not like when you go into a club today, you hear the sound, but it's more on a power level, where David was more on a clarity level, where you can walk in the center of his room and have a discussion and also enjoy the music. So it was just totally unique. There was nothing like it. Not even the garage could compare to it from my point of view, because I was there when they even came up with the concept of creating the garage. And there's not a lot of people that are still alive that were there during that meeting.
Tell us about that meeting.
Well, I got a call from David, and he asked me what I was doing that day, and I really didn't have much going on. He says, well, why don't you stop by? So I stopped by, and he was right in front of 99 Prince Street, and we walked up to Broadway, and we walked all the way down to Richard Long and Mike Stone's apartment. It was a loft. And when we went up there, I didn't know what was going on. I was just, going on with David. And that's when the discussion took place about creating a new club. And, that's when they came up with that concept. They wanted to build a big club.
Mike Stone or Mike Brody?
Mike Stone.
Okay.
Mike Stone and Richard Long were roommates.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
Okay. So Richard Long was actually going to create the sound system. Okay. And Mike Brody was invited, David and myself. I was there. But I wasn't involved in any of that. I was just hanging out, But the reason why they invited David is because David was familiar with cabaret laws, and they wanted to know that, So
wow. So you were at the birth of the garage.
Yeah, at the very first party when they had sawdust soaking up the oil. I was bouncing all over the place with my Converse sneakers, having a great time. Met some interesting people that evening too, for the first party. Yeah. That was interesting.
Compare and contrast the garage versus the loft.
I wouldn't describe it like that. It was never like that. I don't know. Maybe in the minds of some people, they viewed it that way, but from my viewpoint, I never looked at it that way. There were very good dancers in the garage. I mean, because we went to the garage too on Friday nights, because on Friday nights was like it was a straight party, and on Saturday was a gay party. So we went to the straight party, and then on Saturday, we went to the loft. So it was never about versus the garage, because think about this. If the garage hosted a party for the gay people on Saturday, then what about the straight people on Friday? What did they do? They ended up in the loft. You understand what I mean? So I can't never say that we battled each other or we competed against each other. No, it was never like that, as far as I'm concerned. Other people might have saw it that way, but I never saw it that way.
Was the dancing different at the loft versus the garage? And talk about the music. Was it different or similar?
The music was similar, but the clarity of the sound was different. In other words, if you went into the garage and you spent a few hours in the garage, right? And you came out of the garage, you would hear the music. What do you think you would hear the music? Be ringing in your ears because it was so powerful. But when you went to the loft, it was totally different. You didn't hear music ringing in your ears. But you can hear it in your mind. The whole different trip, So, I mean, if you want to do a comparison in that sense, then for me, I'd rather listen to clarity than raw power. And now I'm not taking anything away from the garage, because the garage did have a powerful, good system. But it's a personal preference. If you prefer loudness as opposed to clarity, I preferred clarity, because clarity contributes to creativity. The clearer the sound, it's like almost like if you went to Carnegie Hall, for example, right? The acoustics in Carnegie Hall is amazing. Okay, But let's say you went to like an arena and you listen to the music and they set up like at let's say the MetLife Stadium, they set up there. It would totally be different because there's no acoustics.
Mm.
You understand? And David understood that. David understood that. And when he created the sound system, it wasn't just him, it was a team effort. You know, he knew what he wanted. And those who put it together followed his direction, and it came out beautiful. Because the first time I went there, he had a whole different system. He was dealing, I think he was pushing out Macintosh, yeah. It was Macintosh, and then he got introduced to Mark and Levinson's, and then he switched. He switched the whole system around into Mark and Levinson's. Yeah.
And wasn't the Loft also where the tweeter was pioneered?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say it was pioneered, but it was arranged in such a way that no other club had it that way. You know, so it was interesting, very, very interesting, you know. And you know, another feature of the Loft that I really liked that happened to be upstairs is the lighting. The lighting and the reflection off of the balloons was amazing. And this is something that a lot of people didn't know, but I would say the first year or 2 years that I went, when you walked upstairs, it was like you was in another galaxy. Because Clyde was such a great artist. He duplicated the universe and painted it on the wall. You saw the earth, you saw the moon, you saw the stars, you saw the Jupiter. He was really a visionary. And that was just one of the most amazing sights. And you just can imagine it with the balloons and the lights, and you're in that room. You really believe that you're in the universe. It was a great experience.
Talk to us about when you would go into the Loft, 1 penny.
What do you mean 1 penny?
It'd give you a penny back, right?
Yeah, 99, $6.99, and you get 1 penny back. Yeah. What that was about, I have no idea.
Gotcha. And then also with the Loft, there's also a lot of Little Rascals motif. What was that about?
What do you mean, Little Rascals?
Like, well, didn't the invite have like the photo of the Little Rascals?
Yeah. Yeah, it did. But if you ever watched the Little Rascals, what was the thing that you noticed most about the Little Rascals? Was it not their unity? And they always, if they got into trouble, they all got into trouble. And they helped each other. Wasn't that the concept of watching the Little Rascals? So transition that to a party. You know, there's nothing greater than developing friendship with people, right? Developing a rapport, a relationship with people. So I mean, even though as we got older, we all went in different directions. I wouldn't be the person that I am today had I not experienced that. Okay, so I can liken it to this. I'll give you an illustration. Like, let's say you wanted to get to a certain location, right? Maybe in another country, but you know that you have to take a vehicle to the airport. Once you get there, you got to take a plane to get to the country that you're trying to get to. And then from there, you would have to take another form of transportation. The Loft was, for me, it was a vehicle that got me to one place. And once I got there, I took another vehicle to go to where I really wanted to be. if that makes any sense.
100%. Describe David Mancuso as a person.
David Mancuso was an interesting character. He was a nice guy to a certain point, but he was very difficult at sometimes. Sometimes he could be very difficult. But he was never an apologetic person, but his conduct always would show you that he was sorry if he did something wrong. If that makes sense.
And
But look, let's face facts. We all are imperfect. We're all going to make mistakes. If we didn't make mistakes, there wouldn't be any point in learning. So David made mistakes just like any one of us. We all make mistakes. But it's learning from them and trying to make the effort not to repeat them. That's the most important thing.
Talk about the different versions of the loft.
Well, what do you mean? As far as
Locations.
the location? Well, there'll never be anything like 99 Prince Street. When it moved to 3rd Street, it was like a shell of what it once was. But because of the legacy of it, people still kept coming, but it was never like 99 Prince Street. I think after it moved, people came just to run into people that they experienced 99 Prince Street with.
Would the loft work today?
Different era, totally different era. I don't think that's like trying to put a size 7 shoe into a size 5. It wouldn't fit. You would have to tailor it to fit the time in which we're living in now. I don't think that the way that we're headed as human beings, that was one era, and that's not going to be repeated. That's not to say that something greater can't be invented, but you definitely can't live in the past of what once was. You got to look at for the future. What's important is this moment right now, because you're alive. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, because it's not promised to any one of us. Unforeseen occurrence can befall any one of us at any given time. So, the concept of what took place in the 80s and 90s, and even the 70s for that matter, you can't duplicate that now. You understand what I mean? Because it fit that time, served its purpose for that particular time.
What's your favorite loft memory?
Every night was a favorite of mine. I can't say that, but there was some outstanding nights. Like I'll tell you, and I'm not saying that one is more favorite than the next, but I could share this with you, that one night was when David invited T Connection to perform at the Loft. That was amazing. That was really, really good party. And another time, I would say when Linda Clifford came and visited us.
Wow.
That was nice, because I personally got to meet her through David.
Wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was very interesting, and what's his name? Rerun. Well, yeah. He came and visited us, and we wanted him to dance with us, but he wouldn't dance with us.
Mm,
Because he was good with the pop locking. He was really
yeah.
good. But when he saw what we were doing, he was like, "Whoa, what are these guys doing, man?" Because you had some really talented dancers in the loft. I mean, talented. I
Mm,
mean, unbelievable.
mm,
I'm talking about dances that were in complete sync with the music. Complete, incredible. I learned a lot just when like the first year that when I first came to the loft, I wasn't really into dancing that much because I was a martial artist. But when I started watching some of these dances, I was so impressed. Now, I've always grew up around positive thinking people, so I never think that somebody could do something that I can't. I never think that way. So I just watched for a long time, and I watched two dances in particular. Oh, actually three. I watched uh, Juice, Bernard, and I watched James and Coco. I watched them, and I really loved the way they harmonized with each other. That part of that, the way that they danced, I took that harmony that they had, and I put it in what I was doing. You know, my style of dancing was never like pattern. I don't dance like a pattern dancer. I like to feel the music, and I'm gonna dance to what I feel. And the greater I feel, the greater the dance is gonna be. If that makes any sense.
mm.
you know.
You are into martial arts. How did martial arts influence your dance style?
A great deal, 100%. Because as I was studying martial art, I was developing balance, power on two different levels when it came to power. The first, I did so many push-ups. I did so many, standing and sitting in horse stances to develop strength, power. And then when I started to learn principles involving energy and how to redirect force and learning how to generate power from my core I took those principles and I started putting it into dance, because then I started examining a lot of dances, especially old timers. Like one of my favorites is the Nicholas brothers. So I watched them a great deal. And then I started watching Fred Astaire. I started watching Donald O'Connor, which is one of my favorite dancers, by the way, and Gene Kelly. But I never tried to do things exactly the way they did. I always wanted to be me. I would learn a step, and then I would just go to the club and experiment with it. But martial arts helped me a great deal because it gave me strength, balance, and control. But there were some nights that I wasn't in control. I'll be honest with you. but martial arts served me very, very well, because it gave me self-control. And there were many a times that I had confrontations with people, but I always tried to avoid them. Because the 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 greatest fight is never with your opponent. It's within yourself. It's easy to hurt somebody, but try to heal someone. And sad to say, during that time period, it was like martial arts was like it was like an epidemic. It was on television. People were coming out of movie theaters after seeing Bruce Lee and with nunchucks. It was crazy, you know. But I was into martial arts not because of the movie industry or any of that. I was strictly into martial arts to protect myself and my family. That's why I got into it. I didn't get into it because I saw it on the movies or I got inspired by the movies. No, I got beat up and landed up in the hospital. That's why I studied martial arts, because I said that would never happen to me again. And I studied 2 different systems. And I just I just love dancing. I fell in love with dancing.
Which systems did you study?
The first system that I studied was Wushu from Grandmaster Alan Lee. And then I met Master Jason Lau and I started to study Wing Chun system. But that's my past life. I don't practice it anymore. You know, that's not me. I'm on a spiritual journey now, you know, cultivating spirituality, you know, because, you know, this world that we live in produces so much suffering, you know, and I'm looking past that, what lies ahead, the real life, not this one.
Let's go back to the Loft. Talk to us about the record pool and your involvement.
I was never involved in the record pool. Let's get that straight. I was never involved in it. One day I came to David's house and during the week, I stopped by and David said, "Hey, Ricky, man, I'm so glad you were here. I got a big problem." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He says, "Come here, I want to show you." So we go inside and we go all the way downstairs. And behind the coat room, there's a little room there. So he opens up the door and all you can see is boxes and boxes of records. He says, "Ricky, I don't care what you do with them, just get them out." I mean, I took thousands of albums out of there. I mean, they're all brand new. In the case, never the wrapping was on each one of those albums. And that was my only involvement in the record pool, was to get rid of, because he had shut it down.
Got it. The Loft and the Garage were critical clubs of that era, or spaces of that era.
The Garage was a club, the Loft was not.
Right. Let's talk about the greater metaphor of the club being an escape for what was happening in New York City at that time. In terms of like crime, you know, the racism, and the club was basically a safe space where you can come and be together and relax.
Yeah, well, I can't go as far as to say that what people reverted back to when they left the parties, because you don't know what people are doing if you're not around them. But I do know that it was in the Loft was like a neutrality. No, you know, if there was any hostility going on outside, it certainly wasn't going on in the Loft. You know, and good friendships developed in the Loft to this very day. You know, there are good friendships. But I can't go as far as to say what was going on outside of the Loft, because I really wouldn't know.
Understood. Now, you were also part of a dance group at that time. Tell us about that.
Wow, that was an incredible experience. I loved it. I really, really loved it. I never knew, neither of us knew
But tell
that
people what was the name of the group and who was in the group.
okay, the name of the group was originally it was the City Steppers, but then certain members of the City Steppers went different ways, and eventually Mike Dungy and Doc and Michael Ramshaw wanted to form another group. So they started looking for good dancers. And at first, it was like about 17 of us when it first started, you know.
Wow.
And yeah, it was about 17 of us.
You guys are
And
like,
but little by little, people, you know, weren't dedicated. They didn't, you know, they weren't keeping rehearsal time. So eventually it just came down to 5 of us. So, you know, we started rehearsing, and then we had Ada LeBron's and her partner Mercer. They were like the business end of the group because they would get us auditions to go to and get us jobs, basically, you know. So it was me, Willie, Doc, Michael, and Ada LeBron's. We formed the group, and we didn't, at that time, we didn't have a name. And I came up with the name Force 5 because when we were in the loft, I noticed that kind of energy that we all had, and that was like a force. So then I said, well, how many people are in the group? 5. So why don't we call ourselves Force 5? And that's how that came into existence. Now, what we were doing in the loft, Michael Dungy, I give him a lot of credit because he was able to watch each and every one of us, and he knew our strong points, and he choreographed it. And to the point that when we gave that show, it was called the Tama Festival. I'll never forget it. We did a show on a tractor trailer flatbed. Okay. And at that time, the public didn't know what we were doing in the privacy of David's home. But that's when it was exposed. And one of my most memorable nights, I remember I mentioned 2 nights, but there was another one. When we were working on the routine, right? One night we were all in the loft, and Michael says, we were all dancing downstairs. So Michael comes up to us, to me, Willie, Doc, and Ada was there. He says, let's do the routine. So Planet Rock, I'll never forget it. It came on, and we started the routine. The club went wild. I mean, they exploded, and they were so shocked at what we were doing. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that night. And then we started doing shows. Unfortunately, we could have went all the way to the top. Because at that time, nobody was doing what we were doing. Nobody. But we had no idea how that was going to inspire a whole generation years later, man. We had no idea. So I look at some of these kids on YouTube, and, you know, I could look at the move and I say, I know exactly where that move came from. and who invented it, you know. Or I'll go up to EP, you know, I think it's EPT on Friday nights. I'll stop by sometime just to say hello and give some inspiration and encouragement to some of the younger dancers. And I'll stop by there, and I know exactly what some of those moves came from. Some of the moves that I particularly used to do, very difficult for anybody to do it, because you got to have that inner power to do it. Got to be strong.
What is lofting?
What is lofty? Oh my goodness. I
that
never heard that
controversial?
term. I never heard that term when I was going to loft. I mean, we never had no dance. We didn't name the dances. It's not like martial arts. Martial arts, each move had a name, it had a purpose. But when we were in the club, nobody was thinking about naming, lofting, or what we were doing there. We were hanging out and we were just enjoying ourselves. I mean, when you think of it that way, it becomes more creative because you're not putting a label on it. You know what I mean? You're enjoying yourself, and you're creating self-expression, which is very hard to do. You know, to express yourself is very difficult. You know, but to express yourself with no self-conscious, not being self-conscious about it, but just expressing yourself. You know, and really enjoying the company of people around you. That's when it becomes good to me. I like to say, you know, imagine going to a party, right? There's 100 people there, but only 10% of the people having a good time. What kind of party is that?
Right.
You know? No, man, everybody got to have a good time. Otherwise, it ain't a party. You know, I certainly, personally, I like dancing with women. I don't know about these guys today, man. They like to battle each other, and the girls are standing on the outside, and they're not even enjoying themselves. And now all of a sudden, I see them battling the guys. What is this about? What happened to the compliment that women contribute to a man? What happened to that? That got lost somewhere. I don't know how it got lost, but during the time that we were going out, let me speak for myself. I danced with women. I love dancing with women because they're part of the journey too. Why would you want to exclude them? They were created to be a compliment to the man anyways. So when you act in harmony with the purpose, it becomes that much more enjoyable.
That's deep. Are there any questions that I didn't ask that you want to talk about the loft, or anything you want to clarify?
Oh, let me elaborate a little bit more on Richard Long, because there's a lot of people that don't really know about him, because he was such a big influence behind the scenes that people really didn't know. But Richard Long was an amazing person. His creativity and his understanding of sound was just incredible. He, first of all, a lot of people don't know this, but I was told that he invented the push button telephone and sold the patent to Marvell at that time. That's how smart this guy was. And I can tell you, when you went to his house, he was like Mr. Gadget, because he had things hooked up just like Mr. Gadget, you know. Very, very smart man, very nice man, you know, from what I could see. And you know, he wired many sound systems in many different clubs, like New York, Gables, Paradise Garage, Melons. He wired Fantasias. He was very, very smart when it comes to music. And him and David used to have some really deep conversations about sound, you know. But David was on a whole different level, I'll be honest with you. You know, Richard Long sound systems was basically for clubs. David's sound system was for his house. Totally different. You know, but they did agree on many things, and I'm sure that they disagreed on many things. Like I said earlier, David could be difficult at times, you know, but no one can ever take away what David was able to accomplish and the many people that have formed lasting relationships as a result of going to his home. No one can ever take that away from him, you know. He's inspired a whole generation. Many DJs that you see today would have never been as popular as they are now had it not been for David Mancuso. And that's the truth of the matter, you know. I mean, going to his house did open up. It was like a platform that really launched a lot of people's careers in the music industry, you know. So in that respect, yeah, Richard Long was a genius, you know. And a lot of famous people came to the Loft. Some came disguised that you didn't know who they were, but yeah, David's sound system was that intense that, as a matter of fact, there's only one place that I can think of that has a similar system that he used to have, and it's in Japan. And that's what's his name? Man, I'm getting old. Forgot. What's his name? Boy, I can visualize the face and I can't come up with his name, but yeah, I went to Precious Hall when I went to Japan, and it was an incredible system, but it wasn't like David's. It came close to any other system that I've heard. It came very close, but even the Loft today, nowhere near the sound that David had on 99 Prince Street. No way. Because I think they only got like 5 amps that they do the party with. David had like 20 or as much as 27. You know, so that's an event that will never ever happen again. And even if I had the opportunity to be born in this time, I wouldn't take it. I would never say that I would want to be born in any time period. That was the best times. Because it helped me to be who I am today and where I'm at today. You know, I'm not into, fame and fortune and all that, but I'm quite content with my life the way it is. I love serving the Most High and helping people to develop a good relationship with the giver of all good things, and at the same time help them to make better decisions so they can be happy. Isn't that what the Loft was about? We went there to enjoy ourselves and to be happy, because everyone wants to be happy. That's just the way we were created. So that's the reason why I'm where I'm at. Because I thought of it one day. I was at the club, and when I left, I was like, there's got to be more to it than this. I wanted to learn more about creation. I wanted to know more about the Creator and why do good people suffer? Why does natural disasters happen? I wanted to know the answer to those questions. I wanted to know why hatred exists. When you went to the Loft and you experienced that, you're going to ask yourself those questions. If you don't, I don't know what you're thinking. Because it's such an experience that really opens up your mind to search for answers, you know? But anyway, I hope that my memory was able to accommodate you with the questions that you wanted to have.
This was fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for doing this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
All right, take care. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.